So generally, I think that most IoT devices, better known as Internet of Things devices or smart devices, are basically worthless and basically exist just to collect your data and aren't worth the packaging they come in. So that is things like smart fridges, smart crockpots, smart locks, especially smart locks. Please do not buy a smart lock unless you want your house to be broken into, because if you go watch a lockpicking channel, you will see how bad some of those locks are designed. Some of them you can pull apart with a screwdriver. You don't even need to lockpick it. That's how badly designed some of those smart locks are. So just don't buy a smart lock. But I do make one exception, and that is for smart light globes. Now, you might notice that the lighting in this scene looks garbage. So let's actually go and fix that a little bit. So let's go and turn the light on. Give it a second, there we go. So now it's a bit yellow in here, but it at least looks better than it was. But let's change that a bit. Let's go and make it purple. Or let's go and make it rainbow, for example. So the light globe that I specifically bought was the Mirabella Genio. And there's a very good reason why I bought this one. So I don't know why, but every single store in Australia that sells light globes is stocking this right now. I have no idea why you can buy this everywhere, but for whatever reason, everywhere has them. So I think part of the reason is the fact that they are really cheap. So this is, I think, $30 Australian, which would be $15, $20 US. So it's a pretty cheap smart globe. And being a cheap smart globe, it's not going to be as good as things like the Philips Hue or any of the other smart globes out there. But if you just want something that you can dim and you can have like rainbow overhead lights, this isn't the worst option out there. So the one that I bought in particular was the B22 socket, but you can also get it with other sockets as well. I don't know what the other ones are called, but you know, like the screw socket and other sort of light sockets like that. So it will work in most houses unless you have some really weirdly designed socket. From what I've seen, most of the standard sockets are supported, so you can probably find something that fits into your house or into your lamp or whatever it is that you're trying to stick this into. So you might be rightly saying, what exactly is the point of having a rainbow globe? Now you can also get this in white and yellow variants. Now I believe they're $5 or so cheaper, and those ones are just going to be dimmable. And that right there is the reason why you might want to buy this, because they are dimmable. Now I don't know what it's like in other countries, but in Australia, basically no houses have dimmer switches. I think I've been to like 1 or 2 that do, but most houses really do not have dimmer switches. So you can have your lights on, you can have your lights off. There is no in between. So when it's late at night, you generally don't need that much light. Unless you're trying to read or something like that, you really don't need that much light. And it's just going to make sense to then go and just dim your lights, because 1, it's going to use less power, and 2, it's just going to help you sleep better. So having your phone as a replacement for a dimmer switch isn't perfect, but it's better than having nothing at all. So I mentioned about having your lights dim, and because it's a smart globe, you can actually set that up on a schedule. So you can say, okay, after 7 p.m. or something like that, so you can have dinner, and then after that point, the lights are just going to dim down to like a minimum brightness. So that would be something like, say, give it a second. The app is a little bit slow. Dim down to something like this. Now, if I turn these off, you'll be able to see sort of what it's like. It's probably going to not really show up that well, but this is sort of what it's like when it's dim. It's a bit brighter than this. My camera doesn't do a great job at showing it, but it's going to be a lot dimmer than it otherwise would be. So that's going to be much better for you if you're trying to get ready to sleep than having bright lights blasting on you the entire time. So speaking about getting ready to go to sleep, usually what I'll do like the hour before I'm going to bed, just so I'm not looking directly at my screen until the moment I go to sleep, is I'll go and read a book. So right now I'm reading volume 14 of Shield Hero, if you wanted to know. And what I was doing before is I have a lamp back there, and the globe in that lamp isn't very bright, but it's directly behind my head. So even though it's not bright, it's still really bright directly behind me. And I feel like that's a little bit too much light. And the old globe I had in my ceiling was obviously going to be way too bright. So what I can do now is dim the globe down to, I guess, the minimum for what I need to actually read. Obviously, you don't want it to be too dim, because then you're going to strain your eyes. But having it at that minimal level where you can still read is probably going to be much better for you if you're trying to get to sleep. So what about that use case for the rainbow mode then? Obviously, it doesn't fit into my regular sort of content, because when I'm doing like a Linux software showcase, a Linux tutorial, some other sort of serious video, I think that having the light going like this sort of takes away from what I'm trying to say, but one place that it does fit in pretty well is for my podcast. So if you want to go see a long form usage of this, in the 25th episode of my podcast, I had this going for about 2 hours after I remembered that I actually owned it. So I felt like that kind of livened up my scene a little bit, because as you can probably tell, my background, pretty boring looking. I've got a bed here, and the bed is directly up against the wall, so it's not like I can put a bookshelf there or anything. So I thought, okay, how can I actually liven up my scene a bit? And I thought the easiest way to do that is a color changing globe. Obviously, I could also put like posters up there, but this is a share house. I don't really want to damage the walls. So the easiest thing I could do was having a rainbow globe. And the other place this will work is when I eventually start doing streaming. So I'm going to be doing Q&A streams on this channel, and I'm going to have a second channel and a Twitch channel where I start doing game streaming as well. Nothing's going to change for you guys besides having the Q&A stuff here, so don't worry about that. It's just going to be extra content. And I'm probably going to start that after I finish uni. So I feel like having this light going when I'm playing games doesn't really seem that out of place. Most people have, some sort of rainbow lights going on in the background anyway. So I think that it kind of fits with the mood, and honestly, it just looks more interesting than just having a white wall there. So the way this rainbow is being done is inside of the Mirabella Genio app, there is a section called Scenes, and under the Scenes section is basically where all of the different predefined modes are. So there's a reading mode, a working mode, a leisure mode, and the one that I'm using is called Dazzling. Now, all of these modes can actually be configured basically to your liking. So you can have 8 rainbow breathing modes if you want, but by default, this is set to flashing colors instead of breathing colors. I don't know why it's set like that. So there you go. Now the colors are going to be flashing. I think this looks way worse. I don't know why this would be the default. I think that breathing just looks way less jarring. I think the flashing is kind of it's sort of distracting, I guess. So having the breathing colors, I can sort of not really focus that it's happening, but when the colors are hard flashing, I sort of lose focus and start focusing on the background instead of what I'm trying to say. Now, when it comes to actually making these scenes, you can't actually go and create new ones. You actually have to just work with the 8 predefined ones. But as I said, you can have 8 rainbow breathing modes, but you can only have 8. You can't go and make, a 9th one or a 10th one, and you can't get rid of ones that you don't need. The ones that are there are the ones that are there. One problem I have with this is sort of just a recording problem. So you might notice that there is this pretty bad shadow problem back there. So off to like the corner down there's a really bad shadow. Over on that corner there's a bad shadow. If I move my arms around, there's a bad shadow. And it's just kind of distracting. Now, I obviously can go and fix this by switching the light to being in my lamp instead of being in the overhead. Or I guess I could also put stuff on the wall, but it's sort of something I'm going to have to deal with. It's part of the reason why I don't want to be using it in my regular videos. In a stream, it's not really that big of a deal, but I feel like for the regular videos, I want people to be focusing on me rather than what's going on in the background. Now, another thing that's really annoying about this is getting it synced. So the way that works is pretty dumb. So what you have to do is turn the light on and off 5 times, and that will then take it into easy mode. Now, easy mode doesn't seem to work. So I've tried to get that to work. Basically, easy mode is you'll connect to it with the app, and the app's just going to do everything automatically. That doesn't seem to work. So what you have to do is go into AP mode. Now, AP mode is even more annoying to get into. So what you have to do for that one, first what you have to do is get it into easy mode by turning it on and off 5 times. And then once it's in easy mode, you have to do the exact same thing again. So you have to turn it on and off another 5 times, and then it will be in AP mode. And basically the way you sync to it then is you go and connect to the access point, and then it will try to find it, but it's probably going to time out 5 or 6 times, and then it will eventually just start working for no reason whatsoever. And then, if your Wi-Fi disconnects, you have to do the entire process all over again. And sometimes the Wi-Fi doesn't even disconnect. Sometimes it just forgets how to connect to the light bulb and you have to reconnect it again. I've had to do that once in the last 2 weeks that I've owned it. So that's more than I would like to do it. It's sort of the problem you get from buying a really cheap light globe. It's not the worst thing. When it's working fine, but when it does stop working, it's usually really annoying to fix. And my biggest problem with this is sort of just a problem with IoT devices in general, and that is that I have to do everything from my phone. There's no public API, there's no desktop app, at least I don't think there's a desktop app. I know there are third-party mobile apps, but from what I've seen, a lot of them also require extra hardware as well. So maybe it would be possible to make a desktop app, but being a general consumer electronic, most people are fine doing it from their phone. I just find it sort of inconvenient because I'm going to be at my computer anyway, so I would like to be able to control it from my computer. If nothing else, I would accept a web application, because then I could at least write a Python script to do fake mouse presses, and then I could just automate it like that. Obviously, having a public API so I could access it through a terminal application would be the best, but I could at least accept a web application. So I think that's pretty much everything I want to say about this, but would I actually recommend this? Well, if you have $30 to spare and you need to get some sort of smart globe, it's not the worst option out there. There's certainly things that are worse out there. Obviously, if you have other IoT devices, being a separate environment this is going to be in, you might have some problems actually getting this integrated into that environment. I haven't tried it because I don't actually own any others. So if you just want a standalone IoT device, you just want a standalone light globe, this is fine. I don't have a problem with it in that regard. Now, a problem I do have is it's not the brightest globe out there. If you go look at some of the just slightly more expensive smart globes, some of them are way brighter, so this one does lack in that respect, but it's as bright as I need it to be, so maybe in the future I'll get something different, but for now, it's going to work well enough. So if you're on a really tight budget and you really need a smart globe, I would say go ahead and buy this. Especially if you're in any shopping center in Australia, you'll probably find this right in front of your face. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, but before I go, I would like to thank my supporters. So a special thank you to Joachim, Corbinian, Craig, Nathan, Andrew, Montazar, Joseph, Peter D. Road, Tony, Donald, John, Marek, Mikkel, Spagin, Thais, and Zilva. If you want to go support my work, there'll be some links down below, as well as my other channels. Yeah, those. I've got my podcast, that is Tech of a Tea, available on Library and YouTube. It's just rambling nonsense the entire time, usually like 2 or 3 hours long, and the audio version is available wherever you listen to audio podcasts. This channel is available on Library, BitTube, BitChute, and a bunch of other platforms as well. And also remember to go smash the like button and leave me a comment down below, and remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below as well. So I think that's pretty much everything for me, and I'm out.